that.
Well, I
We'll bring this meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody can rise. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If we could have everybody silence their phones or put them on to vibrate, we appreciate that before the meeting starts. If you have an opportunity to stand at the podium, if you could address your, who you are, and so the council knows, we can put that in the notes. The first order of business, which some of you maybe are here for, I'm not sure what you're here for. Maybe you just came to visit us. Is the commissioners have submitted an additional request for $600,000 in the Community Capital Development Fund for the purchase or construction of a highway garage. Do you want to open that for discussion? Of what?
Is there anything that the commissioners would like to say to us before we debate on this issue?
Well, this issue has been going on for better than a year. The commissioners voted in this morning to purchase Fuzzy Lakes building over there, which is one of the things we've been looking at along with other buildings and building down here. So that's where we are right now. Purchase price of that's $575. We asked for $600,000 to buy the building and a few little odds and ends we might have to do over there.
Okay, so that's the commissioner's official position right now, that they intend to buy the building from Fuzzy Lake on the east side of town?
Yes.
Your request here says for the purchase or construction of a building.
Dale, that request, it had to be advertised ahead of time, and at the time we didn't know what we were going to do, so we had to advertise to cover all bases. That's the same way with the land acquisition request for appropriation down there. If we were going to build on the ground down below, we would have to buy that piece of ground from Mr. Wells. That's what that's for. So really, the only thing we have to consider right on the minute is the $600,000 appropriation.
This $600,000 appropriation is tied to purchase of an existing building.
It is tied to existing building. As I said, the commissioners voted this morning that they made the decision to purchase that building over there. To do anything else would require an action by the commissioners in their public meeting.
Okay. Does everyone in the room understand what he's saying?
So is it too late?
No, no.
No, I think some things
I
need
guess
to
I
be,
didn't understand.
I think some things need to be clarified. First of
Okay.
all, what the history of this was, when the commissioners came to us originally about 6 months ago and requested $600,000, they were turned away and they were granted only $300,000 to do what they currently want to do now. So I'm going to guess, and Commissioner Barker, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that they felt that they were backed into a corner and they had to make a decision because of the condition of the existing building is not adequate. It is in bad shape. I think they're going on the assumption that they would probably be granted that again, because all the discussions that have led up to this point tonight, up until earlier part of this morning, they were under the impression they would only get $300,000 from the council to build an existing building. So I think that they're covering their bases for this $575. I think if the council had granted them the $600,000 that they originally asked 6 months ago, they could have done an adequate study to check out both that location that they're currently at and the proposed Fuzzy Lakes building. Am I correct or am I incorrect?
Well, that's true. Our original request was for $600,000 to build a building on the property the county now owns. But the council didn't see fit to do that, so we have been going back and forth for at least since last June with the council, and we got down to In the January meeting, I come to you and told you I realized the council appropriates the money and the council and the commissioners purchase or buy a building. So why didn't we have a meeting with me and 2 or 3 of the council to sit down and discuss what would be acceptable to everybody? When I left that meeting, my instructions from the council was to go see Fuzzy Lakes and see if I could negotiate the purchase of that building. So that's where we are.
And that was the case. That was what the 3 of us, Mark Flum, myself, and Jim Wolf, met with Commissioner Barker to discuss that, and that's what he was directed to do, was to seek a fair and equitable price for a Fuzzy Lakes building. That was agreed upon by the 3 of us. Because there was an impasse as far as acquiring the land where it currently is and to build something suitable for what the dollar amount that they wanted to approve. So therefore, Barton had to pursue that because that's what he was directed to do. He was directed to, he said he would get an appraisal, and that's what he was led to believe to do.
Mike, in the meantime, I've heard from some of the people in that area that they don't want it over there because of traffic problems, train problems, road problems.
Are we allowed to speak?
I'm sorry?
Are we
Yes,
allowed to speak?
yes.
My name's Alan McIntyre. I live at 234 Fine Street. I'm against it being in a residential neighborhood. The street ain't wide enough for trucks to go down and pass each other. I want to know who's going to patch it when you tear up the sides of the road than when you tear my car up. When I have to get off the road and tear up my tire rods and stuff. And the road from Fifth Street to Fine is not big enough for truck traffic to turn. It's hardly big enough for car traffic to turn. And the curve down there by the railroad track, darn sure ain't big enough for truck traffic all the time. So I feel like got about 30 to 40 kids in the neighborhood, no sidewalks. You know, when 2 trucks are coming back and forth, where are they supposed to get? Especially when the weather's like it is right now. Thank you for letting me talk.
Can I say something? I understand where Mr. McIntyre is coming from, but we use that road now whenever we go over there to do anything. If we're going over there to Chip Seal, we run that road, because we're hauling from IMI over to there to the chip box. Unless we're out of the far end of the county, and then we go down the highway. But it gets used a lot now, because we pass farm trucks coming down it, semis coming down it, and everything. It gets a lot of use right now in that area.
But if you move there, it's going to be used a lot more, isn't it?
Just depends where you're working at, which way you're going.
And it's not safe for the
You have
kids. The
to come
kids
and
right
run.
now play in the street. They're gonna get killed if we start having a bunch of trucks coming back and forth all the time.
I'm Michael Dawson. I live 125 Fayette. And my sister there's got a point. She lives across the street from me. There isn't any sidewalks on the street, along the streets. There is a lot of children out there, especially after school's up for the summer. And we don't see a lot of county trucks go up and down that street. There, you know, occasionally we do. And then you get the train stops there for sometimes several hours at a time. These guys come back in, their heavy equipment's going to sit there and wait for the train to move. And it is dangerous for children. And like she said, when you come around the curve, across the tracks, you get a lot of car traffic and big trucks meeting right there. Somebody's going to wind up down the railroad track in a car or a smaller vehicle. I think it's too dangerous myself. And I think the county, I don't know how much property the county owns, but I think they probably have a better place than that, in my opinion. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Jackson, you brought up in the last meeting about the trains and the regulations and so forth. Could you let someone know what's supposed to be happening with that?
Mr. Young, who lives over in your neighborhood, gave me a call 2-3 weeks ago at home, and he suggested I talk to Miss Oakley, the transportation director at the high school. And and I know Janie, I grew up with Janie, and I gave her a call, and she said that the train does block that track for a significant amount of time. Mr. Young told me that he could look out his back window and see the track and see Fuzzy's building, and he said it does block the track. Matter of fact, at that time, he said when he was talking to me the prior weekend, he made the comment that the train had blocked the track for about 2 hours. And I don't deny that that is a concern. Mr. McIntyre, Mr. Dawson, I understand your concerns too. Our concern is that we have a building that is potentially near collapse, and our existing building, and we've looked at the possibility of building versus the possibility of buying. Building will be more expensive. Mr. Lake's building meets our needs. We're looking at potentially, and there's no way to pin a particular dollar figure down, but we're looking in the area of anywhere from $50,000 to maybe $100,000 more to build on our existing site, as opposed to buying a building which is, for all intents and purposes, ready-made. And I want everyone here to understand one thing. Any decision made is not a personal decision. You know, if I lived in your neighborhood, I would probably have the same concerns. But outside of going into a 50-acre field and having a driveway up to it and having the building as a standalone building, I don't know if there's any way we can address everyone's concerns. There are some people from the neighborhood of the County Highway Garage right now that are here tonight. And when you pull into the County Highway Garage, if you made a sudden left and veered off of the driveway, that property that goes over to 200 South and hooks back around to the west does not belong to the county. It belongs to Mr. Willie Wells. And we have an opportunity to purchase that property and build there. However, and I don't want to speak for you, Mr. Judd, but from what I understand, you have some concerns as to either flooding or backwater or whatever from the construction there. Everyone has a concern, and they're not illegitimate, they're genuine concerns. But again, we're presented with a few options, and in our judgment, we have to choose what we think is the best option. So, does that answer your question, or?
If you do get it, are you gonna put sidewalks for the kids? Now I called one time, it's been a few years ago, and they told me there wasn't enough traffic on that road for sidewalks to be built. So if you wind up getting down there, are they gonna put sidewalks in there for the kids?
That's city property, so it would have to be brought up with the city.
And that's
Not trying to pass the buck, but
No.
it is city property.
it is.
Got
It's
about
true.
30 kids that run around there
Understand.
all lots of hours a day and night out when they get out of school.
You will come up here, sir?
What would be wrong with behind where it's at now?
Well, what we found when we originally thought about building down there, we did require to do some soil borings, and well, either before that, they came into work down there one day and they had no electricity. So when they got into the main entry line for the power into the building, they were digging down and they hit plastic. And I don't remember it, but the sheriff was telling me that when he was a kid, he used to play that. That always used to be a big ditch that was where trash and debris was thrown into. So the soil borings proved to be inadequate for building according to modern day standards, okay? Plus that, we can build there, But we have to, according to the architect's report, it would take $50,000 to $60,000 just to stabilize, in my words, rehab the soil so that it's fit to be built upon. So you've got $50,000 to $60,000 right off the bat, plus our estimate of a new building, which is $600,000. So you're looking at $650,000 to $675,000 versus the $575,000 for Fuzzy's building. And again, there's nothing personal in this, but to me, it's a business decision. You're looking at saving anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000, however it comes in. With Mr. Lake's building, according to Jay, we can get all of our vehicles inside the building and close the doors, which means in like the weather we've had, you don't have to worry about plugs for the diesel blocks and all this kind of stuff, and they're safe from everything from the weather to vandalism. Mr. Lake has also thrown in, excuse me, originally he offered to sell us a building, and separate to that, he has a 30-ton overhead crane that he wanted additional for. He came back with another offer to sell us the building, the crane, a camera security system, which is really good, and an alarm system, all for the $575,000. So to answer your question, we can build there, but it's going to cost more money. And the design we have for that $600,000, which is right now is a guesstimate, okay, still puts all those, there are bays to back the vehicles into, but they're all open doored. So they're still exposed to the weather. And these last trucks we bought, which before my time, they were $150 a piece. $145,000 a piece. So to me, if you can put a $145,000 piece of equipment in a building and protect it from vandalism and everything else, I think that's a prudent thing to do.
Frank, what's going to be done about the stockpiles and everything? Are they going to be maintained down at the present location? And then the county's going to drive back and forth to all them, or are they going to move the stockpiles to your new facility that you're planning? You've got a lot of stockpiling down there, the haul from IMI, Derbyshire quarries, and other places. All this, like the folks said, if it's over there, it'll be tracked up on the roads, there'll be gravel everywhere. I know, I've been down that road.
Well, my suggestion is that we use both sites and do whatever is the quickest and most economical. And you'll have
control.
I'm sorry.
Then you're going to have a command and control issue at that point.
How do you have a command and control issue?
You got 2 sites and only 1 supervisor.
Well, you don't have to, it's not a whole lot of supervision required to loading a dump truck, is there?
I don't know. 17 and a half years, I seem to have encountered that issue more than once.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
Of Jay, would you save any, can you get the salt and the gravel and so forth, can you get that transported in by rail car? And is there any savings in cost by doing that?
No, I don't think you can get it where Lakes is at, because I'm not sure there's a place to unload it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not running the show, but I saw his hand up.
That's fine.
Frank, how many acres are you talking about that you have to have?
Fuzzy's place is 4-point-some odd acres. I think 4.3, something, 4.3, 4.4, something like that. And we do have the option, and there are no plans to do this, okay? But we do have the option that when Mr. Lakes purchased that property, an option came with it at the time of the sale of the building for him, and I suppose we could exercise that option too, to purchase, I think it was up to 6 or 8 acres immediately to the east. Now, he talked to Mr. Jones, who owns the property surrounding that. Mr. Jones offered to sell us 2 acres or whatever we need back to the north, okay? And like I said, there are no plans to do that, but you need to keep your options open and see what's available for your problem. Again, we have wrestled with this for a long time, and there are just simply no, in my opinion, no perfect solutions. As to your question about sidewalks, I may be wrong, and it's been a lot of years since I was in real estate school, but Dale, are taxes raised if sidewalks are added?
That's part of the equation that they use to.
Yeah, I think you would see, and I'm sure it wouldn't be a lot, to be honest with you, but you would see a slight increase on your property taxes, if I understand correctly. And again, it's been a long time, that's not my area of expertise, if they build sidewalks. Because frankly, my aunt made a comment a long time ago that sidewalks build friends. Because you have easier communication between neighbors, and kids have a safer place to ride their bicycles and etc. But for whatever reason, some of our forefathers either didn't have the money or chose not to do that.
Frank?
Yes, sir.
Oh, go ahead.
Mr. McIntyre.
You said that it costs $50,000 out there to get the land ready to build. It probably costs you $50,000 to $100,000 to make that building accessible for everything you need.
No.
That 30-ton crane ain't gonna be your cure-all for everything.
No, the 30-ton crane is, icing on the cake, it's a bonus, okay? The building itself is, all three of the commissioners and some of the council people have looked at it, and Jay has looked at it. It's pretty much a fit. I think probably the only thing that we might have to do is add some drains in there, but I don't think with the manpower we have and with the equipment, I think we could probably do that in-house. Okay. So, again, I understand your concerns. I don't live there, so I don't have a part in what you feel and everything like that. But I'm just telling you from my point of view as a commissioner, why we made that decision. And it wasn't without, I even made the comment about the street being broken down because of additional traffic. And that's not something, well, most of the streets are going to have to be worked on come this spring anyway with the weather we've had. But I think with the back and forth traffic, we're going to have to wait and see. And obviously, we can't drive on a street that's full of potholes and chuck holes either for the maintenance of our vehicles.
You do know we're the last to get finished in that section of town.
I didn't, but that doesn't surprise me, no. No.
Well, a bunch of chuck holes right now, it'll be a ton more. What traffic gets right now.
I understand, ma'am.
I just have a question, comment, both.
You will come
Is
up,
Fuzzy-
we'll come up here. They can see you on camera that way.
I'm wondering if Fuzzy's building is advertised for sale. Does anyone know, or is it something we just did? We just worked with him to see if we could buy it, or is it actually advertised for sale?
Fuzzy contacted us when the council asked us last year to look for buildings, existing buildings instead of building. When we did that, Mr. Bates contacted us and offered the building to us.
So if it were advertised for sale to everyone, perhaps it would be a prime location for business to come in. If we didn't take it, for this purpose. That was just a comment the thought that I had. And then the other thing I just want to reiterate about the sidewalk situation, not only the kids, I see someone walking with a cane regularly down our road. I walk my dogs down our road. And with two vehicles, large vehicles, using that, it's just not safe. And to me, it wouldn't matter how much money saved, it wouldn't be worth someone's life. And then, I just don't necessarily know if I want to see a garbage truck every day. I see it every day on trash day, but if that was in our neighborhood, I would see that every day. And that's just something that, to me, means something. I want to be able to live in my neighborhood and enjoy it.
the city has the garbage trucks, the county just has the dump trucks, and,
The dump trucks like the recycle,
no, that's the city.
the city? Okay, so I'm still gonna see
They're large trucks, about
large
that same
trucks.
size.
Yeah, okay, same point. All right, thank you.
There's a lady.
One thing I wanted to comment on, the gentleman in the back who was talking about if we could build it behind the existing building. Some of the things that the council members brought up was the fact that when you drive by the current location, it doesn't look the best kept. Part of that is because they don't have enough storage to put some of their equipment. You drive by Wayne County, you drive by Rush County, it looks very nice. But they've got a lot of room behind their buildings too. So by moving the building back, you lose some of that opportunity to hide some of the equipment. So it's still gonna be some eyesores there. And I think Jay, you're dealing with some of the cars that the sheriff's department brings over there, and so.
You're
that-
aware that Rush County takes all their trucks home every
So
night.
I am aware of that.
So they're sitting outside.
And they also get
Oh,
they also get tarps for free from one of their wives that they're able to fabricate and put them over the beds of the truck to keep the stuff out. So we would have to incur costs to do that too.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that that's why you don't see a lot of trucks around their facility.
Yeah, well, we was talking about just other stuff, not just trucks. Zane?
We've talked a lot about, I don't want it in my neighborhood, and I don't want it in my backyard, and I want safety, and I want this, and you're the taxpayer, you're the voice, okay? But the job of the commissioners is to see that the safety of the highway workers, they work in a safe environment. Now, you guys go to work every day, it's your employer's responsibility to make sure you work in a safe environment, and that you go home every day. In this case, at this point, if that building collapses at this point with somebody in it, number one, somebody's going to have to call somebody's family member and say either A, your husband or loved one is in the hospital, or worse. So it's our job to make that decision and figure it out. So in the beginning, in June, I think it was June, when we came in and we said, or Barton had said, we want $600,000 to build a new building, and it went to $300,000. That was the original intent, was to build at 121. And we jumped around, we did a lot of stuff, and I talked to a lot of the council members, and I respect their decision here tonight, whatever that may be. But Fuzzy Lakes' building kept looking better and better, and the time has gone on. The engineers didn't say that it was condemnable, but it was close. We have one wall in the back of the garage. The workbench is holding up that whole wall. That's it. So, and I can't speak what happened 30 years ago. I can't speak about what happened 10 years ago or 15 years ago. There's 3 men that are elected as county commissioners to do a job. So we said, let's get something done and let's do it. And in the immediate time of purchasing Fuzzy Lakes' building, it's the quickest response to the danger that's at that location. It's the quickest response. And it's also minimally, and we talk about money, but it's your tax dollars we're spending. So, if we're going to spend $700,000 on a highway garage, okay. Or we're going to spend $575,000. Now I can understand, I've got kids in my neighborhood. And I live out in the county, and my daughter wants to ride through the neighborhood, and I don't let her because I'm afraid, even in the neighborhood I live in, somebody's going to hit her. Or, safety is a concern, and I don't ever want to see a child hurt for any reason whatsoever. But we got to focus on the task of what we're doing. Either we're going to build a garage or we're going to buy one. But at the present time, at this situation, we decided collectively this morning that we agreed that Fuzzy Lakes' building was the best idea, because for the simple reason it was the immediate response to get it over with and get it done. Because these guys have got to go to work every day and deal with it. And I've been in that building. I took that gentleman there, he came to me back in the beginning. He said, why don't you guys just fix this building? You're going to waste a bunch of money. I said, get in my truck, I'm going to take you down there. What was your assessment after you left that building?
It's in bad shape.
It's a dump. Now, I can't help that somebody built a pole barn 30 years ago. And people look at me and go, well, what would, you're awful young. 30 years ago, I was 8 years old, so I don't even care about highway garages. But today, it's my decision, it's his decision, and his decision. And this is the best possible route. Now, if we can find a way to build on 121, but we have to do something. We don't have a choice. We've got to do something now. Because in the event that someone is paralyzed by a roof collapsing on top of them, number one, you have the issue with a guy in a wheelchair or a loved one gone. You also have the issue with the liability insurance. So when the insurance company knows that you have a building that is in such poor shape, they're going to look at the county and go, not our problem, you knew it. We're not paying the bill. We already don't have a whole lot of money. And everybody says, well, where are you getting the money to pay for this building? Everybody sits around and talks about how you have no money. The QCAP money can only be used for that and that alone. You can't spend it on fixing roads. You can't spend it on people's payroll. We can't use it for utilities. That's all that's for. So we have the money to do it. So, me as a commissioner, I'm asking the council, you have a tough decision, make the best decision possible, whatever that decision may be. And we'll do the best we can with what you give us. But my concern as a commissioner is the safety of the workers at that site. And we need to figure that out. Thanks.
Chris, the last meeting, you went over the legality of our liability and so forth. Can you, because a lot of these people weren't here and they may not have seen it on TV, could you go over that, what you went over 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I mean, just basically the county in general, which would mean the council and the commissioners, have put on actual notice that there is a defect in the building, which could result in bodily injury to a highway worker, any passerby. I mean, if you have a known danger and don't take any steps to prevent that or to take people away from that danger, you really have no defense if there was an injury there, because I mean, you have a duty to maintain a building as any other reasonable, prudent government agency would, and I mean, you breach that duty if you've known for 6 months that there's faulty beams and it broke. You just wouldn't have much of a defense from
What
a.
about a liability of putting a garage in an area where the street's too narrow and there are enough children that play? Would we have a liability there for child concern?
I mean, duty
Not a
and
child, anybody could get hurt.
duty and liability. I mean, a child could get hurt walking down the street. The city that's a stretch to say that they had a duty to widen the street.
Knowing that you brought that extra
I mean,
traffic into that area?
Well,
I have kids too, and I'm concerned too. I mean, we've all talked about that for the Fine Street location, but they've been kind of backed into a corner, and this is what they were told to do. This is what they were directed by the council to do, and they've done that. Now, Jay, in the county roads, because I grew up obviously out of state, and the county roads where I grew up are a lot wider than here. Aren't some of the county roads probably about as wide as Fine Street? Now, I know it's just not the population that you're talking about in the county road.
They're probably a little wider than Fine.
Okay. Because I know I've driven down Fine, but I've never paid attention to how wide it is.
I haven't noticed it, but that's Leroy's area over there. You drive it all the time? I drive it all the time, okay. I plow that area over there. And I'm probably the orange truck you see go by 4 or 5 times a day. And I do, when I have my plow on, I have to kind of pull over into somebody's yard to let another truck go by. But when I got my regular ones, I don't have my plow on, we usually pass pretty close to each other, but we get by. So
Then if you got somebody walking down the road, that person got to do.
I stop and let them go by. I do a lot of stopping on that road. So, yeah, it is tight. But
So what happens in situations like that, Jay, in the county where you have something narrow like that? What are easements or so forth? I don't know if maybe Warren, if you would address that.
Probably a right of way there for the city, for a street. I'm not sure what that is, but they would be responsible for building.
Okay, on the thoroughfare plan, the right-of-ways, I believe, for that class of street is 60 feet.
So it's 30 feet each way from the center line of the road, which is actually the city's right of way.
So what if they're not? What if they're at 40?
Well,
And I don't know, I'm just
like I
saying.
said, I would have to look again at the map for it, but most of the right-of-ways for the city streets are 60 feet. Now, for example, is Beeson's Addition, I know that's 70 feet. The rest of the streets in Beeson's Addition are 60 feet wide. It's pretty much a standard right-of-way. Of course, we know the lanes don't always fill it in. It's all the other utility right-of-ways, sidewalk right-of-ways, drainage right-of-way, are all the things that make up the city the road right-of-way. So it's not just the street.
So are you saying that you think it is 60 feet wide?
I'd say it's probably 60 feet wide, the actual full city right-of-way.
Okay, but it has to be under asphalt.
The city street standards on that class of road are a minimum of 12 feet for travel lanes. So there's streets in town that don't meet the city's own standards, or are narrow like that.
So what does a resident have to fall back on? Can they go to the city and say, our streets are only 10 feet and we need them widened, or?
I think that would be a way to go for city residents.
I'm just trying to.
Yeah, because I've made the mention of the same thing to residents who live in Beeson's Addition. If your streets are too narrow, you don't have the sidewalks, the only people who can change that is the city council, and that's who you have to go to get that. And and I agree. I think it's not good that so many streets don't have sidewalks. I live off Country Club Road. It's the same problem. So we have a lot of streets like that. And I don't know if something like that's included with because the city, I know they're going through the same thing that the county is with the accessibility. The accessibility study for county properties.
The ADA study.
Yeah, the ADA study.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's so that might be something also right there, is to find out what's going on within your neighborhood within the ADA study. As you mentioned, ma'am, you have someone who you've seen someone with a cane going through. That's an ADA issue. That's accessibility. That's something that as the city's going through this, you need to let them know. And if you need those in place, is you guys got to let the city council know. I mean,
It's not, anyway, this could go contingent on sidewalks in the area.
I have nothing to do with that type of decision. All I'm saying is that all I'm saying is that's what the right-of-way width is for the city, and the sidewalks go within that. The city is the only one that can actually put them in. They have the authority to put them in, but they also have to find the funds to do so. It's pretty much like anything else with the county. Like the commissioners and the council, they're trying to make the smartest decision that they actually can with taxpayers' money.
Let me ask a question of the residents that live on Fine Street. And I'm just asking this, we have zero control over the city. We have zero control. The commissioners make contracts, and that we just deal with money. Well, let's just say that they had a magic golden pot that they could get their money from. If they were to be able to widen that street and put sidewalks in there, what would your feelings be then?
I feel much better about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have no objection.
Okay. Is that pretty much the consensus of most people who live on Fine Street?
Our house is really close to the road, so I would be really concerned.
I don't think there's room enough to widen roads over there.
Yeah, it's
It'd take a lot of work.
Take a lot of work and take.
Well, they're doing it on Grand, so I'm just throwing that, if that was your biggest concern, I mean, obviously, I think there probably needs to be a discussion had with the city about your situation too. And I think you just show up in force like you have here tonight, because they're the ones that make that decision for the city streets. Ma'am?
I've heard rumors over the years about a possible bypass eventually. I don't know if that is anywhere near development, but that could alleviate the traffic on Finance Street and push them to the bypass.
I don't know anything about that.
Okay. Now, it was originally planned back on the thoroughfare plan back in 1893 to put a bypass in. Now, the practicality of actually doing something now, I really don't know, because that location would have been back on, as you come across, I think, 150 from over on Pointer Road. That would then pass just to the east of where the doctor's office is, and then across and continue up 150. Now, a lot of things that happen are funding on the part of the state. You have to have traffic to justify the expenses. of making those type of improvements. Now, when the thoroughfare plan was originally planned, we had a lot of business going on. We had a lot of factories going on. I don't know if a lot of people are aware of, there was the proposal for the Park Road extension and then to then bypass. Well, the state of Indiana, when they ran their traffic study, we no longer have sufficient amount of traffic on Indiana, one on 30th Street, and then on Western Avenue to justify that type of expenditure to be the same thing. Now, at this point in time, a lot of it will probably never happen. Now, the surveyor's office has been very good about putting in place bridges and then various parts of the bypass. Because right now, everything that came from the improvements on Gray Road, okay, Ziegler Road, the Veterans Memorial, then the things that are going along Village Creek Road and then around Alquina Road, that was all part of the bypass. Now, this is, like I said, this has been going on for almost 20 years. Actually, yeah, it has been 20 years now they've been working on it. Now, would anything more happen with it? I really don't know. But there has to be an economic justification for the state to spend that kind of money. Because most of the money for these type of projects does come from the state. Pretty much that in a nutshell, Bob?
Pretty much says in a nutshell. I don't foresee that bypass going around. The farm that the county owns up on Water Road was originally purchased for that reason, to go over 150. And like I say, the Village Creek would just put that bridge in there, and there's a right-of-way book to make that come up to what the bypass would need if we did that. But I don't think we're going to see that bypass for several years because the state just won't furnish the money.
Mr. Parker, it's been probably 6 or 8 years ago, I attended a meeting on behalf of the airport with the Indiana Department of Transportation, and they were questioning us about coming off of one just south of our runway on that property we purchased back then, and going over, crossing the river, with one spur going down and connecting with the Park Road,
right,
and the other spur going over to 44, which would be in the neighborhood of this garage. The engineers, there were probably 25 of us at that meeting, and our airport consultants had drawn it all out. We had agreed to give them that right-of-way, all the way across there, free of charge. They had proposed $19 million to do that. About 7 or 8 months later, I got a notification that there was nothing. There was no money going to be expended on that.
They put that on the
done deal.
Right. The extension of Park Road is,
yes, sir,
it's not going to happen, or none of that. And like I say, unless we get our economy a whole lot better than it is now, and everybody gets a lot more money than they have now, I don't think we're going to see that bypass.
No, at that time, the reason was there was not enough activity.
Things take a long time. Ziegler Road, that took 25 or 30 years to get that.
They told us that they were going to fast track up that job for us because we were good enough to give them the land. That fast track was 8 years.
Right.
That's how long it was going to take to get it started.
Right, and then they change their mind and don't want to do it at all. Right. Yeah, so I don't think we'll get a bypass now.
But that's just not going to happen.
No.
Yeah, because as the meeting, and you guys at the same meeting with when that came up, then we went a while without the next meeting, and that's when we were formed as with Mr. Worley referred to, was the notice that they couldn't justify the expenditure.
Yeah, it looked good at the time, and it was feasible, and it was a good idea. But with no traffic, they're not going to expend that kind of money.
Right.
Ma'am?
Sir?
She's been patiently waiting.
Yes, ma'am.
I said ma'am.
My name is Carolyn Judd, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Judd family who lives just south of the highway garage now. We've been neighbors to the highway garage for about 30 years, and they're not bad neighbors, so if they become your neighbor, I wouldn't worry about that. What I'm here to discuss is the field, Willie Wells's field, that is to the south of the highway garage right now. I've been in the family 25 years, and I have seen the field flood more times than I can count on my fingers and toes. About a year or so ago, it flooded from water from the field that's to the west of the highway garage and above. It comes down through a ditch in between the highway garage and the Judd property, plus it comes down a ditch on 200 South. The water became so high that it came up to the house. It was under the crawl space in the Judd family home, and that's not an occurrence that we would look forward to seeing if that property to the south is built up in order to build a highway garage there. As I understand it, that land would have to be built up a significant amount of feet in order to keep the highway garage from flooding, but our concern is that when you do that, you force the water back on the property owner, you know, next to that, which would be us. Building that house where he did, my father-in-law has been vigilant for over 40 years in keeping the water where it's supposed to go, which is not at his house. So he communicates with the highway garage to keep the ditch open, to keep the ditch on 200 South open, and in even a good year, there's still the potential that the water does come back a significant amount. I know my mother-in-law has talked to insurance companies, and we understand that although that property is not considered a floodplain across the road at the railroad track in Canal Bed, it is, but we feel that that needs to be reevaluated because the water is not obeying what the map says, and there is a water problem there. We have a picture from the News Examiner of years ago, my father-in-law driving through the flooding right there at the highway garage in his F-150 truck. We have videotapes of that field flooding, and it is not our desire to incur a property loss because of you know, a building that probably should not be built within 20 feet of where a map says a floodplain is and where an insurance company charges more because a building is there. Do you have any questions? And to address the children concern, the highway department, you know, those men are trained to look out for things. There have been 20 kids over the period of 30 years that have been raised along 200 South right next door to the highway garage, and I'm not even counting the children who play in the field from Wells Trailer Court. So those men are trained to watch out for that.
Not some of the children around a good neighborhood.
Well, that's a...
Last summer, I had to call the police. I don't know how many.
And I think that happens in any neighborhood.
Kids were laying in the street. You remember that, Joan?
Yeah.
They would not get up. I went out there and tried to get them to get up.
I live on Conwell
The
Street.
vehicles would come by and have to stop and get.
And you did the right thing by calling the police because that is a parent issue. But I live on Conwell Street, and I nickname our street the most festive neighborhood in all of Connersville because we have children in the summertime playing in the streets just like the old days. So I understand that. I have 4 children of my own that I keep in my own yard. So.
Sir?
That's another issue about the children. Is the county going, if they get Mr. Lake's property, they gonna put a chain link fence around it and gate it?
That's what we talked about doing. That's what I should say the commissioners have talked about that.
See, Mr. Lake's himself, the people told the police on juvenile problems on Mr. Lake's property in the past. At night, 2, 3 in the morning, on school nights, kids down there, not only kids, some adults go down there too looking for something to steal to take to sell to junkyard the next day.
Right.
And when school's out, I bet a lot of little kids in this neighborhood being close to town gonna be playing on our property. Riding bikes and whatever.
We have seen children between ages 8 and 10 years old, 2 o'clock in the morning, walking down the street.
On school nights.
Yeah, and where are their parents? Who knows?
Commissioner Barker, did you want to address that about the fence? The question was, would you put a fence around it?
It hadn't been decided if that were to put up a fence or not. We probably probably would if we had to leave something set outside, you know, as far as the people vandalizing the property or being on trying to steal something, that's an issue where you get any location you are, you know. Out in the country, they've been to my place and cleaned me out a couple of times.
What's the security system currently at the highway garage now that you have?
I don't know if we have it.
We have so,
That was kind of my point.
We have a chain link fence around it, but we have no security
I
system.
mean, you've had problems with vandalism and theft up there too.
Well,
And my point is you don't have a security system there.
right.
And you would have one, so
That is true.
that would help. I mean, they've incurred a lot of cost with their pug mill and other things that have been just damaged.
But that just means more money on top of the, whatever we need.
Well, I mean, that's
Purchase the place, more money.
it's still, from what I understand, less than what it would be to build currently. So,
All right, you're gonna lose,
So, any other choices?
you're gonna lose about $11,000 a year in property taxes too, to take the Lakes building.
you will.
And then you're gonna have the cost of driving trucks back and forth to the old highway department, getting gravel, sand, and whatever you need. So in the long run, over 20 years, it's gonna cost you way more.
Well,
I would have had a bigger issue with the 20-year tax abatement that we gave the new company that just moved in. That's a lot more tax base that we're losing there.
Yeah, but we're talking about the Lakes building right now, we're not talking about taxes.
But we're talking about tax base.
As far as going, traveling back and forth to get materials, Jay said this morning in the meeting that, you know, they go down and get a truckload of materials and take it to the site. It's not, most of it's not stockpiled anywhere, you know. So you're gonna make it one trip somewhere and get your load and take it wherever it needs to be.
But you have the cost of keeping that place down 121 open, you're still gonna have electric and stuff, or you go shut it down.
I don't know what, we're gonna take that building down, is what we're gonna do. There'll be no building there to have electricity in. You know, like I said, we have been talking about this for better than a year. But originally, we wanted to build a building down there on that piece of ground, and the council turned us down. The reason we went over to Mr. Lakes to start with is because the council sent us over there, told us that was the best option, that's what they wanted to do. So it's kind of hard to...
But after talking to some of these people here, they don't want it on their street because they're narrow. You got a train problem, 2 or 3 hours sometimes, the train cuts.
So you have to decide whether the council wants to give the appropriation or they don't. It's just down to that, Jim. You know, we can make an argument against any place you want to put it.
Right.
Okay, I'd like to interject. I wanted people to talk before I said anything. I wanted to hear, a lot of information. Mr. Barker, Mr. Strong, and Mr. Wolf and I, we met today after your commissioners meeting. And we talked about a lot of things. One of the things that we kind of threw out, well, let me back up to one thing first. Correct me if I'm wrong. When we met, Mr. Winnet, we agreed, we knew the price that Fuzzy wanted was $575,000. We authorized Mr. Parker to go back, offer $550,000, $300,000 down, and then we would finance the rest for 2 years at no interest. That's what we asked you to do. Is that correct?
That's correct, but it was also brought to our attention that he was not willing to do the 0% financing. We even mentioned that.
Well, we know that, but we asked for it to be done.
Right.
It was never done. Now, no offense to you, Barton, because I know
it was
that
done.
Mr. Jackson was told by Fuzzy, don't have anybody come back and offer me anything else.
And
So
I
I know you
talked
did not know,
to
and that's
Mr.
okay.
Lakes about the financing. He had talked to his accountant, and he said that there was no way that he could finance for no interest. Mr. Lakes will sell you that building, part of it down, and part of it over the next 2 or 3 years at 3% interest, if that's what you want to do.
Okay, so now, let's go back. Jay, I got a question for you. You said there was a 30-ton crane that he threw in?
Yes.
How big a crane, do you need that big of a crane? What's the biggest size crane you think you would need?
The one we have in garage right now is really undersized for what we do with it.
Okay, how big is that?
I think it's a 20-ton crane.
20 ton?
Yeah. And it's the old hand crank crane with the chain on it, and you have to slide it across by This is all,
This is all
it's
electric.
a nice outfit.
Okay. I don't know, I had no idea what a crane like that cost. I mean, dollar-wise, I don't have any idea.
I don't have a clue.
Okay,
I think Fuzzy said it was about 50,
50?
I think is what he said. And he installed it himself.
Okay, well, okay, now, let's go back. I happened this last weekend, and Mr. Jackson, I want to approach something that you said about the soil borings down there. One, the low ground area is very poor. That is the poorest ground to put a building on, because it's it's rated at 1,500 to 2,500 pound, 2,500 pounds per square foot for a column, and 1,500 pounds for a strip footing. Very poor. Okay, that's the low ground, okay? And we'd have to remove 2 feet of topsoil before we would actually start being built up. We're approximately 3 feet low right now, so we would have to build that up 5 feet. In my opinion, that site is totally off the table, in my opinion.
Which
Just like
site
the
is
lady
that?
said, if you put that much fill in there, you're gonna cause even more of the water probably to be thrown onto that house. So to me, that site right there is off the table.
You're talking about Willie's property.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
the low ground, okay? The actual soil borings up above, the 6 borings up above, they ranged in depth where you hit good soil. On the southeast corner of that building, you had to go down 2 feet. You were at soil borings, you were at soils that rated at 4,000 pounds per column, and I think it was 3,000 for strip footing, so it's almost twice the capacity as that low ground, the ability of it. Now, they were drilled at different depths where they hit good soil because of that ground, sloping like it does. So I'm saying if you removed all that down to that 2-foot level, where that one boring is 2 feet, you'd only have to go down, you gotta go 3 foot down for your frost line, which you normally do around here.
Mr.
So you
Plum.
only gotta go 1 foot below to hit the good soil.
Mr.
And
Plum.
2 foot, you hit the good soil, well, you only got one foot further than that. Yes, Mr. Plum.
You're talking about the soil boring. Frank Irzane know nothing about what those soil borings mean. Mr. Inderstad is here, who's the engineer who built a building, was going to build it. I think he would be more, he could address your questions better than we could.
Yeah, well, I don't have to, I'm getting this from a civil engineer that
Well,
has told
like I
me
said,
this
if we're
too.
talking about the soil
actually-
borings, why don't we talk to Mr.
Yeah,
Inderstad?
okay, but if he wanted to talk, he would be better off talking to my civil engineer that I got, and then they could actually talk.
You mean the civil engineer in your company? Is that?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yes. But anyway, that's, so what I requested today, well, let me back up one other thing. I went up and visited over Saturday the highway garage, State Highway Garage at 40 and State Road 1. This facility up there is the state-of-the-art facility. It was $6.5 million they spent on that facility up there. The supervisor and I also talked to the shop foreman. They have, in working on equipment, they got five actual bays to work on equipment, and then they have a wash bay off to the side. And they service counties. They service trucks in Newcastle. What are we here? In Henry County, Fayette County, Union, and Wayne. They work on stuff like that. Roads in those areas. Whoever brought up about the Fuzzy Lake building does not have any drains in it right now. It's pretty much a flat floor. Somebody talked about that. Okay, now I asked him up there about that. Their drains, when they bring a truck in there, that ground, that cement slopes from the high points, the edges, to the drain of approximately 5-inch drop in about 30 feet. Okay. And he said that you have to have the drains. If you don't, you got to bring those trucks in a heated garage overnight. You're going to have a major water problem in that building. So it's not just as simple as putting a drain in that building. One, you got to tear the concrete up to get it. You got to slope that concrete. So you basically, to make those drains work, you got to tear a lot of that concrete out to get those drains to work properly. Okay? Now, the highway garage they built up there was it was to be an open, where they store their trucks, it was to be an open shed. They were not gonna put doors on it. They ended up putting doors on it because the supervisor complained about it. They also, the gravel lot, the lot in behind was supposed to be all gravel, and they complained and they paved it all. He did something with his budget to come up with the money to do that paving. They told me that the state of Indiana said they will never build a facility that this good ever again. They spent way, way too much. This is the best highway garage in the state of Indiana. So what I'm saying, all the future ones are gonna have open storage sheds. They're gonna have gravel lots. They're not gonna go any different than that. Anything they build from now on out. The other thing he said, that they recycle. Jay, do you produce your own brine?
We make our own brine.
Okay. Well, they with their drains.
They recycle the wash water. They
Yeah.
recycle their wash water.
Yeah. Well, with them doing what they do by having these drains, they capture all that stuff coming off the trucks and they recycle all that to help, make their brine. So it's they save a lot of money by collecting all that stuff. In the storage building right now, every morning when they pull those trucks out, it's a pre-engineered building, which you said, Mr. Barker, that versus a pre-engineer versus a pole, Mr. Industrod said that when you I did some cost comparisons on some jobs, you found out the pre-engineer was a little bit cheaper than even a pole structure. Is that correct? Did I hear you, Mr. Barker?
Well, I think what I said to Mr. Industrod told me was with the last building he built, which over in Germany, or over in Liberty.
Okay.
That the steel building come in cheaper than the pole building.
Yeah, we gave the option, due to the savings of labor, once you get to the building of that size, there's enough labor savings that it offsets the cost of the steel, and it ended up being, they were close. I mean, they were marginal within about 0.5%, but about 0.5% cheaper, plus they got I think it was an upgrade to a steel building versus a pole barn.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%.
So in today's market, steel now, you gotta watch the steel market, because there was a time the steel prices were so high that just the opposite. So that's a market you have to watch.
Mr. Plum?
Okay, yes.
To respond to what you said about open bays.
Yes.
If I have a garage and I buy a new Cadillac, okay, I'm not leaving it set outside when I have a chance to put it inside and shut the door. These trucks we bought are as close to a Cadillac as far as price as you're going to get at $145,000 a piece. If the state of Indiana chooses not to put doors on their bays to protect their vehicles, that's up to the state of Indiana.
Okay, do you also know there's a report that's come out recently? They said they found out in weather like this, when you're driving salt roads and everything, a vehicle that goes inside every night into a heated building is more subject to rust than one that sits out. Because everything melts off, it puts the chemical salt into action, it starts rusting the truck faster by freezing and thawing the truck. They found out that recently. So that to me is a reason to leave it outside. I asked Jay. Yes, Jay.
The problem, I understand your logic behind that, but the problem with leaving them outside is like what weather we've had, they get so covered with snow and ice, you can't check them. You can't tell if there's something broke or something wrong until they're thawed out. And that's like where we're at right now. There's not enough room to get more than one or two of them in there at a time if you got something in there working on it. And then you have to leave them in there overnight to do it.
Yes, I see what you're saying about drain. Well, and then I asked you, I said, would you love to have a wash bay at your, you said.
Well, anybody would love to have an inside wash bay where you can wash them in the winter time.
Absolutely.
But that's just a luxury you don't anticipate.
Especially if you got to work on it, you want to get it clean so you can see what you're doing.
Well, we do wash them inside the old garage right now. It's not a very good thing to do because we have a drain, but
yeah, okay.
It creates a mess.
Now, Mr. Instrott, a question to you. If we took one of these bays, if we built a 3-bay garage, okay, and we took one bay and we tried to turn that into a wash bay. Well, I know it's going to be a little bit more because you got to put a drain.
Probably want some cement walls.
Well,
more durable than the metal siding.
I would say more durable, so and then you could use fiberglass panels on the side walls to keep. Okay. I know that would be a little bit more expensive, but how much more? I mean, I know it's pretty hard. And realistically, you'd have to almost draw it up, bid it to really get a good idea how much more that would be. And the third part is, if we weren't washing anything, we could use that day to work on vehicles.
Now, there's options during the design to do what's called an alternate bid.
Yes.
And we've done a lot of times with other government entities and school systems where you gotta stay within a budget.
Yes.
So we'd like to see A, B, and C, so you bid out a base bid, what you write it you want, and then you say, hey, these are some luxuries we'd like to have, let's add alternate 1, 2, and 3, and then the commission and council at that time can see the bids and receive them and say, okay, upgrade 1 was $52,000, do you wanna pay for it or not? And so there's ways to bid it that way if that's something you choose to do.
Okay. Now, I approached Mr. Barker today, and I don't want to tell you, it's not my job to tell you what to do, how to spend the money, and we agreed. I accept it, but I only offer as a suggestion about possibly drilling 2 more core drills down there in different locations, and to see what we got. And you said present that to the other commissioners. Yes.
I just want to mention one thing. I assume your engineer saw the whole soil report.
Yes, he did.
I emailed. Some of those borings, our recommendation was based directly talking with Patriot Engineering on what they would need to do to stabilize that soil.
Yes.
And one of the borings was down 12.5 feet.
Yes.
One's down 11.5 feet.
Yes.
There's such a great variety of differences in those soil borings. Their recommendation was to go with a safe assumption of an 8-foot average until the work was actually completed, and have a soil engineer on site during that work is the only way to know for sure. I mean, the only way, none of us got the x-ray vision. So during construction, the soil engineer would be the one making that determination. We go down 5 feet, we hit good soil, we stop. And of course, you've seen the sporadic nature of the soil. So the cost estimate was based with Patriot saying they recommended utilizing an 8-foot depth until, so that number's a guess, is what I'm getting at, until you start going in there and know, I mean, one's at 2 feet, what happens if 80% of that ends up being at the 12 foot? It's gonna be deeper. So we went with an 8-foot assumption just to clear how that came to that point.
Okay, I understand it. I understand, because we deal with Patriot Engineering all the time.
Yeah, so that's who, their recommendations, we didn't give the recommendation, it's really come directly from Patriot on what can be done.
They've done work for us.
Yeah, they're a great company.
Yeah, I know
I
that, yeah.
highly recommend them. Trust their
We
opinion.
use Alt-Wisik also.
Yeah, we've used Altwig a few times.
so-
We had both quote this project.
So,
Mr. Flom, I want to ask
Yes.
Mr. Sudoff, based upon what was said, what is your opinion? You're a civil engineer. You got experience in this. You've been doing this for a long time.
I've got the report here. I read the report from Patriot, and again, they had the variance of depth behind the garage in site A. And they recommended site B down in the low area, but you're gonna have 10 inches to 2 foot to take out of topsoil, and then they're gonna have to fill it up to get to the floodplain, or so it won't be flooded like 2 foot above the flood, which is right on the other side in the canal. So you have 2 areas that you have a lot of problems as far as site work, I would say.
Site B would also, good engineering practices, if you do develop that site, runoff has to be maintained at its current level. So Site B could require some form of detention or something once engineering design was done, because you're not allowed to force more water onto your neighbor. That's one thing designing and drainage board and zoning does. They will not allow you to do that to protect the owner's property. So if a site like that is chosen, engineers will have to show drainage calculations and prove how you're not backing up the water anymore.
So you might have to do a retention pond.
What's that?
You may have to do a retention pond.
Yeah, detention, yeah. So there's some, again, we haven't engineered the job, we haven't really, that takes dollars and time to start coming up with all those numbers, but.
So, what I requested, I asked, would he entertain doing a couple more borings and at a different location on the site, on the upper part? And he said I would just have to see if Mr. Jackson and Mr. Bradul would be willing to entertain that issue. And I did agree, I did tell Mr. Barker today that if I'm gonna spend $600,000 to appropriate, I would rather spend the $600,000 down at the existing site instead of over there. Because there's other stuff that's gotta be done over there, and I know there's some things that have to be done down there, but that's my opinion. So I just,
I agree
that's
with
where
your
that's
opinion.
where I'm at.
I like that.
Well, Mike, I just have a quick question. And you said you like that idea, and
Right,
that's
you're
fine.
gonna spend money.
Like I said earlier, I really don't have an issue with whatever the decision is here today. Whatever the council decides is what they decide. But on top of that figure, when we hit the $600,000 mark, you guys live in city limits, right? Well, it's still your tax money. So if we need another $150,000 because we got to build retention ponds, and like you said, that area down below is off limits. Which I had talked to Warren today. I said that's probably a good assessment because you're gonna run into all kinds of cost. But I'm not an engineer. When you start getting into building over where we are, either on that building there or in the back, I mean, the cost is the problem. Either way, the cost could considerably go up.
We had our educated guesses of what, based on the soil borings of what we'd have. So that number, again, it could. The guess is, as an engineer and educated guess based on Patriot's report, I doubt that it would go up significantly. But again, none of us have X-ray vision. We go in, maybe they miss a spot that's 22 foot deep. It's unlikely, but that's a general synopsis of the soil in that condition based on, I think there was 5 or 6 borings on a 300-foot long through. Again, it wasn't.
And the reason why I got into that question is that's perfectly fine, building at that location, if that's what everybody's intention is. But when we get to 600, 650, 750,
well,
we're gonna be in the hole.
Until you draw the project up and put it out for bid, you're never gonna have a true figure.
Right.
But if it comes in that much, the first thing you do is you talk to the engineer, you get people like Jay involved and say, okay, where can we say, you talk to the low bid contractor, you say, where can we've got $600,000 program, we could probably get a little bit more, but where can we bring the cost of this down? And then you start working with that, like construction. You're working and you try to bring it down. And I think personally, from my building experience, I think we can build it for.
We pride ourselves, we try to do that ahead of time.
Yeah.
So owners give us budgets and we pride ourselves on hitting buildings on budget and guiding an owner, you need to stop. You've got more than you can afford here. That's why you're hiring a professional. We're gonna guide you through the process, and as we start to design this, we'll start putting some real numbers together, because then you'll have us on your payroll working for you, and as we massage this and start getting real world numbers, right now we've just thrown some rough square footage numbers and hypotheticals and haven't spent a lot of hours really digesting the project and coming up with real world numbers. That will happen during the design scope if.
But when we come up with what we wanted as far as space concerned, and Mike helped draw up the plans, there's not a whole lot of, there isn't any frills as far as I'm concerned,
I think what the original, what I helped the commissioners with was a lot of gravel in there in open bays. And the shop area was the only part that had cement on it, in the office space.
Yes.
So that's what was originally drawn up.
Dale, I had talked to you a while back on the phone, and we talked in length. As an elected official, I want the best possible dollar for the safest working environment for the workers that work for this county, however that comes out. But I told you I'd look at the numbers, I looked at everything, and if we build on that site, which is either way, doesn't matter, we're really going to have to keep it close to make sure we don't spend more than what we originally shot for.
Mr. Straub, what the last time you did a pre-engineering building, I don't know, what did that come in per square foot? Do you have any idea what they remember?
I don't have the numbers with me, but we can give you some numbers on that. It's been a while, but The closest one, we just did one in Union County for Liberty, did a new bus garage for their school department down there. And I just don't have those numbers off the top of my head. Your numbers are based on the area you want, as long as, again, there's no frills from what the commissioners mentioned to me on the design. There's not even going to be a cement slab in a section of the building. Some of the, or no walls, just a roof-only coverage area maybe. So, you know, it's all in the care of the design and saying, hey, we got to stay within budget. And again, I said there's some alternates to be added because you may not want to, you may or may not want to leave a whole bunch of money on the table. At the same time, you got $600,000, you may want to get as much as you can for $600,000. Again, that's where those alternate designs will help you stay on track and stay in budget.
Because the original plans are not a whole lot to take out.
Yeah. Well, the only take out would be to eliminate, my suggestion would be, say, I know you want X number of feet of building is to whack out, you know, the last 50 feet as an alternate.
But to get our equipment in, we need that much space.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Now,
That's
there's
the
also
purpose of
another
getting the building.
thing, is to divide, instead of having a long strip building, divide the building into shop and then disattach the storage where you can lower that thing down
We've talked about
8
that.
feet in height, probably.
And that was one of my suggestions, is we don't necessarily have to have the same height.
Yeah.
I need the parameter from them. I've said one of the first things I'll need from programming is I need your minimum height requirements
Yeah.
in those bays. I need
Right.
you to establish those and your function and use of the space, and then we can design to those.
Okay. Bill had a question.
Ms. Judge's been patiently waiting.
Yes, ma'am.
I watched the previous council meeting and at home, and feel like I've listened to everything that you have said, and of course we have our flooding concerns, and this whole bringing up the retention pond brings up a whole nother issue of hypotheticals. If we're going to talk about safety, then in having that covered, it's going to have to be fenced. Then from a public health standpoint, which I worked for this county for almost 16 years in public health, that's also a concern for me. Stagnant water is a breeder, a wonderful host for breeding West Nile, and I know that we have that every year in our county. I'm not a big, that raised several red flags with me, as I'm sure your concerns over children playing in the street. I don't see that as a valid solution for the water in that area, because not only does that water come down and flood that lower area, and it's going to, can't stop it, it's going to. If you build that up, it's going to find some place to go. You're saying in a retention pond, the engineer's going to say in a retention pond, but we have also seen that water flood over into the neighbors to the south of 121 into that field, and below where Art and Janet Barrett have all of their Christmas lights, and on down 121 that way. It's not just the Judd family, it's all of those houses in there, and over the period of time that the Judds have lived there and knew former owners of property down there and have heard the stories. Building that property up isn't going to stop the effects that what it's going to have on neighbors naturally. So I just want you to keep that in mind, and I appreciate your concern about that lower level. That's what our concern is also. But that retention pond that was just thrown up now just was kind of, wait a minute, whoa, that brings up a whole new set of issues.
Because water attracts kids.
Water attracts kids. Water attracts the organic matter in that water when it's stagnant is repulsive, and is also a breeding ground for illness. So yeah.
Bill?
Okay, well, it relates to some of the questions I had as well. I guess the first one is, there's the difference also in the way you actually design some of the retention areas.
And the maintenance of it, the
Yeah,
upkeep
well,
is my
there's the
concern
maintenance of it,
also.
but you also design them so it handles up to an X amount of flood waters based on, say, 100-year flood, however much you design it. And then it releases the water. They're not meant to hold water permanently like some of the ones you see off of some of the interstates. So that goes into the actual design and what the engineers would put into the actual design itself. But the other question I had is, when we're talking the $600,000, does that include all the site work, including any detention or anything like that? the drainage control plan. That would be something in addition to it, I assume.
I would assume your budget would be 600,000 regardless of what you do, so you would
So
have to back
that's
out
something we'd have to
retention.
write up at the front
You'd
end.
have to back out some costs for.
Okay. And, well, my concern is, yeah, my job, it's public safety, so as both planning and then also the building official. And my only concern is that as, something being done cost effectively, but as soon as possible, take care of what could be a potentially catastrophic situation. So I just would like to see that, asking the council is, whatever's being done, whichever solution is chosen, that we make sure that there's enough, number one, money to do everything the way it needs to be done. Number one, to take care of our concerns for county employees, and also take care of concerns for neighbors such as Mrs. Judd. It's the, and then if there are going to be unanticipated cost overruns based on the design, say something is found, is that whatever solutions come up with, that the council also take that into consideration whenever they set forth the initial appropriation.
I'd like to urge those, if you have anything additional to add, to please come forward and make it brief, so we can, as a council, can make a vote on this. Who?
I was just going to talk about, at the original highway garage now, do you have city water and sewer and
We
everything?
have city water and we're on septic.
You're on septic?
Right now.
At the Lake Welding, you would go to
City water and septic.
sewer and water? Septic still?
Septic and.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So that way they would be able to get away from having an oil water separator for getting away, because I'm sure that your garage is full, you do oil changes, you do everything, and that stuff can just go on out to your septic, go down, get
It
into
will
the
be the same
river.
situation either place.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Their mechanical code will require, because of EPA, there'll be oil separators required to meet Indiana mechanical codes. And based on the use of the building, you're gonna have oil separators no matter which location you go at. You're gonna be required to do that.
So is that gonna be additional cost at Lake Lake?
I can't speak of Lake, I don't know what they currently have. If they mentioned there's no floor drain, so I assume they don't have oil interceptors installed today. So I would assume you would need to install something if you so choose to put in floor drains. You need to separate the oil before you discharge it, either to, it doesn't matter if you're charging it to a septic system or into a public system. EPA wants to see that water treated prior to being put back into the environment.
And that is a very high cost. 20,000?
Yeah, 15 to 20, depending on the size of the tank. I don't know, we'd have to program, I don't know the capacity they need it to be, but I'd say you're in the range.
I have one thing just to bring up. If they're gonna keep the stockpiles at the highway department, the old building, and Mr. Barker said they're gonna tear down the building, I take it they're gonna have to drive a $200,000 payload back and forth every day, or leave it down there unprotected to load stockpiles with, load salt sand with in the wintertime. That machine they got's 13 years old. And driving it back and forth every day, or driving it back and forth once a week, is ridiculous. That's it.
I say even you buy the Lakes building, you're gonna put 50 to 100,000 in it to make it for what you want. Put your drains in, put your oil separators in, you're gonna spend another $50 to $100,000 or more to make it accessible to everything they need.
Well, I appreciate the comments from the public. We appreciate your time coming down to address your concerns with us. We value each of your opinions. We will obviously take them all into consideration when we make the vote. At this time, I'd like to close the public discussion and entertain a motion for whatever the council would like to do.
Mr. President, I think we should give members of the council to at least ask additional questions if they need to, or express any specific concerns they may have. if that's okay with everyone else, there is a couple of questions I'd like to bring up, along with a few comments.
That's fine.
Okay. Mr., is your name Endicott?
Industry?
Industry?
Yeah, Industry.
Okay.
David will be
Sorry.
fine.
The soil borings and all that down there, do you have enough information there to give you a real feel for that entire flat spot up there?
The numbers we said gave us a general, that was based on Patriot Engineering's recommendation on the number of borings to do. And then once you complete that number of borings, sometimes you may want to do more based on your findings. Patriot felt comfortable with the number of borings they got and the information they got, that they got a general understanding of the conditions at that location. Now, there are other possible sites, as was mentioned, that we could look at if we chose to bore a different site location that you own, or again, we were asked to look at 2 sites with Patriot, but I don't know if the soil is consistent throughout all the property that you currently own there, but I don't know that you would gain too much additional information by doing more borings at that current Site A option. We got 5 borings, we know that the soil is going to need to be, there's a couple ways that Patriot talked about doing. One is to do a auger drill where the column posts are going to set. Another one is to do a stripped open footing and restabilize the soil. There's 2 different methods they recommended doing that. We tried to talk to a contractor, some excavators, and try to get some, that's how we got to that 50, 60,000. We said, well, we're not engineering it because there's not a lot of money. We're not hired to really engineer it, so we're not down to the penny. We're just, in general, wrapping our arms around so you can make a better educated decision on the sites. But I don't think we need more information on that one site.
One thing I want to interrupt real quick. I wanted to clear some up. You asked earlier when you first came in here, is it too late with the commissioners? No, it's not too late. That's the commissioner's recommendation, correct? That was your recommendation. That's what you want to do as commissioner.
The commissioners voted this morning to purchase Fuzzy Lakes building, and and come to get the appropriation for it. If we do anything else, we'll have to do that in a commissioner's public meeting.
So if we make a
to rescind
recommendation,
what we did this morning, and to do something else.
so if we make a recommendation and they consider it, they would have to go back and rescind what they did earlier this morning. They've not signed a contract or anything, and we've not appropriated the funds for that purpose yet.
Right.
So it's, to answer your question, it is not final. That's just the direction that they were trying to head, because that's basically what they were told to do by the council. I just wanted to clear that part. Dale, or Mark, Mr. Flum, you were saying something?
No. Yes, Mr. Armstrong. Of those soil borings, there's nowhere in the report that I can see from number 1 to number 6 what the elevation difference in because that's sloping, it goes uphill.
Yeah, those are the depth from the grade of what it was at. There wasn't a benchmark, so it was the depth drilled at location.
At the location.
At the location.
You had no benchmark.
So as you imagine the slope, if we build there, we may have to build it up to a level pad.
Yes, I understand.
Or cut down
to
a level pad. So again, that design isn't done, so there's going to be some variations one way or the other.
Yeah, that's, and what I was saying, if you put a benchmark and got it all down to that same 2-foot level, you could be we don't know where that would be, how much further you'd have to go down to those.
Yeah, if you cut 2 foot off the whole side or whatever,
I'm saying we're going from 12 feet to 2 feet. I'm saying if you cut 10 feet off that site, get it all down to
cut the whole site down 10 feet.
Cut down to that 2-foot level. Those borings are going to be different, obviously, we know, because those borings didn't go that deep. And we possibly could go, I have to go 2 feet to hit solid ground. Possibly.
Are you talking about the site on the hill where it currently is?
Yes.
That'd be fine, they're not bad neighbors.
For you, Mr. Industry, if you can see, what I asked for a possible recommendation was to drill a site over in here, which is totally away from this, and then maybe 1 or 2 down through here.
Okay. And what we were asked is I think they're concerned about maintaining existing operation as this was being built was the only reason why this site was given to us. Again, that was given to us as the site to go. But proximity, the closer we can go, it could be a lot better soil potentially.
This is
And
just.
this other lower site could be even better.
We don't know. Well, my suggestion, this is the only suggestion, was to put the garage in here, so we get that up and operating, then they can move out of here into
As
the.
you can see, there's potentially room to put it here. If you're gonna do the mooring, I strongly recommend not just to do 2. The main cost is mobilizing in there. The cost to do 2 versus 5 is very,
Yeah,
is not a huge
and they
difference.
really don't have to do all this upfront work, because that's pretty much done.
Correct, they got the front work done. It's
So the
gonna be
cost should
cheaper
be
on the
a lot
second end. The second visit to the site would be more cost effective.
Okay, fine.
Mike, you got,
We moved there in 1967. 1968, that flooded, that field down there that you're talking about buying was flooded till we had a lake there and ducks swimming on it. It was up to our garage door. Now, if you think it don't flood down there, you better watch out.
I think that,
I would suggest to you not buy any more land in that, it's bad.
I think that's kind of off the table right now at this point. I don't think that's open for discussion any further.
And I think I'm speaking on behalf of the family. We wouldn't mind at all if it was built exactly where it is now. We wouldn't have a problem with that at all.
We haven't had any problem.
That
We work it out with you.
I personally think that's your solution, quite honestly, with all that I've heard, more educated than I am. I think the citizens on Fine Street are in total opposition of anything done with Lakes Building for their solution. I think at Site A, you can build a building there. You have $600,000 that I'm sure you're going to appropriate for them to do it with. I believe from everything I've heard here, that a building adequate for their needs can be built and done. And I think it will satisfy everyone. Personal opinion. I'm out of here. I got a ball game I want to go to.
Is there any further discussion from the council?
Yeah, Gene Worley's got something he wants to say.
Mr. Winna, my name is Gene Worley. I'm on the airport board. What we just went through is somewhat similar to what's going on here. And what I would like to run up the flagpole for everybody to take a look at is when David starts coming up with real numbers, you're going to start ripping your hair out and beating your head on the wall. We worked for years as individuals on the board, just lay people, with our airport consultants, designing a building that we thought would be suitable for Fayette County. It would look good, it would look inviting. When people come into Fayette County, they fly in if they're coming in to do business. And we wanted to make a presentation to them. This is a great little city and blah, blah, blah. We're all conservative on that board. We don't spend money that we don't have. We never have, we never will. We came up with some numbers. We were in contact with the feds. We knew what kind of grants we could have. And so we put this thing together with the aid of Butler, Fairman, and Seifert, and another company. And it looked really good until we let bids. When you let bids, and you find out that you have to have a water retention system where if you want to wash an airplane or spray one down with ethylene glycol, that costs $50,000. Well, I didn't think about that. I thought we could just put it in the drain. Well, you can't do that. There's so many things that's going to crop up on this $600,000 that I'm afraid these three commissioners are going to be coming back here saying, oh God, we can't do this, we can't do that. That's exactly what we did. We canceled our building. We're rehabbing the old terminal. There's no way possible that we could keep up with the escalating costs with taxpayer dollars. And that's what we operate on, just like these folks here. We operate on taxpayer dollars and federal grants. Federal grants are about 92 to 95% of what we spend. So we don't use too much of taxpayer dollars here. But we're conservative with those dollars anyway. But what I'm saying, they're asking for 600 grand. That's a chunk of money. That's in the neighborhood of what we were looking at. When the bids start coming back and when the ADA compliance, when all the federal regulations come down that you have to abide by, you're looking at 20-25% more money. So I would suggest, respectfully, like we did, go ahead with what council's concerning, what the commissioners are asking, come up with some money for a building and say this is it, and then let David start putting together some numbers and getting quotes, and then seeing what you can do with that. That work?
You got every possibility. Again, I'm gonna pride ourselves, once you give me a budget, you can contact our references, we submit it to them. We just did one for Liberty School. Again, pride ourselves, we hit our budgets. But you're gonna have to live within our confines. We're gonna tell you, we haven't done a budget. You could just say, hey, put together a preliminary budget, Dave. Let's spend a couple weeks, let's really do this. Yeah, we could do this multi-phases if you want. Again, the only concern of that, and I'll reiterate, is some of the safety concerns. You got a building that is in tough shape at best.
Well, but you're going to stay within the confines of the 600,000 or whatever they're allotted. But that might mean a gravel floor in one of the bays or something like that when the smoke and dust settles. You're not going to be able to conjure up a building that they might be thinking about. There's going to be cutting here and cutting there and dollars here and dollars here that you can't spend.
There may have to be some sacrifices
That's
from their
that's
initial
what I'm saying.
vision to what we get.
We were stunned. I was absolutely shocked when I took the numbers from my
I don't think their numbers are off 25%, honestly.
Yes.
They've done a lot. I don't think they're that. I always recommend owners have a 10% contingency when you go into these things. That's a general number. So on 600,000, you usually have $60,000 as a swing.
We worked on 15 and it didn't work. Thank you for your time.
Well, we did close it to public. We need, in the interest of time and those that have been here, and we need to move on with this. The council wants to continue discussing this.
Okay, I'll continue, Mr. President. I've been as open-minded to this whole thing as I possibly can. I can see there's advantages and disadvantages to moving to the Fuzzy Lake building on the east side. There's advantages and disadvantages to staying on 121. But at the end of the day, this is all about money, and money and convenience and other considerations. There's one thing that I've brought up before, and I'll bring it up again. When it comes to cost, there's not just the immediate cost of construction. There's legacy costs and that sort of thing. You know about that, Gene. There's also the cost of lost revenue when you take a building like Mr. Lake's and take it off the tax rolls. Now, you're going to lose almost $12,000 a year in tax revenue when you take that building off the tax rolls. Now, that means that all you are going to have to make up that difference. It's not going to be much when you spread it out over, but it's going to cost. It would have an effect on the tax rate. I ran the numbers on that, and over the course of 30 years, the lost tax revenue on that piece of property would be $355,000, which is more than half of what we're talking about spending down on 121. So those are part of the things that I've been taking into consideration on this. If I thought the commissioner's original plan to replace the building down on 121 was the best idea from the beginning, and I supported that. The council couldn't really come to a solid consensus on it. After hearing the concerns of all you folks that live in that neighborhood over there, I certainly understand and sympathize with you. I'm not willing to give the commissioners money to buy the building on the east side. I would much rather give them the money to replace the building that they need at their current location on 121. That's what I will support. Now, the question is, how much money will it cost? Nobody really knows. We've got to give them enough money. If we're going to give them anything, we've got to give them enough money to put this gentleman to work and come up with a building that's usable for us and suits our needs. So that's basically the position that I'm going to take. So we've got $1 million in the cumulative building fund, and that's what this money's for. $600,000 is not going to take it all. I don't want to spend $1 million, Gene, on a highway garage, and I don't think that'll be necessary. So there's been an awful lot of what ifs and hypotheticals bounced around in this discussion this evening. Well, you know how those what ifs and how they go. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. You know, we can hypotheticalize on this all night long. That's not going to make anything come true or not going to make anything false. So my position basically hasn't changed from the beginning of this discussion when it started several months ago. I will vote to give the commissioners money to build a new building on 121. But I cannot in good conscience give you fellows money to buy the Fuzzy Lake building on the east side for the reasons that I've stated. And it's nothing personal with you fellows or Mr. Lake or anyone else. So that's my position. And if we can get 4 people on this council to agree on any plan, we can get this thing off top dead center and everyone can go home tonight and either celebrate or be mad about what happened here. But that's the position I've got to take right now.
Thank you, Mr. Strong. Does anybody else have anything to add?
I'm only interested in building the building on 121 with Dale. With that, that's somebody I'm not interested in supporting Fuzzy Lake's building.
I agree with Russ and with Dale that it should be on 121. I think people on Fine Street, Woodbine, and Martin Street should have to put up the traffic. I think we have 2 different areas. If we build at Fuzzy's, buy Fuzzy's, we still got the 121 to worry about. So I think we need to stay on 121, and I'm in favor of giving them the money to do what it takes to get it safe down there for the employees. I want the employees to be safe at the county. I don't want nobody getting hurt. And as soon as we do something, I want to see something started right away.
Does somebody want to make a motion?
Well, I got one other thing I want to add to that. I still want to entertain the possibility of exploring the extra core drills down there and splitting the 2 buildings to help to reduce cost. And I agree with what Dale and the rest of Jim said. But that's the other options I want to see. I'll make a motion that we appropriate $600,000 to build at the existing site, but I still want to explore the possibility of some extra core drills to possibly split the 2 buildings to where we can help reduce the cost and lower the 1 building.
When you say split, you mean break into 2 separate total buildings, or just split roof height?
No, well, either way, if you keep them together and split the roof, you got to have.
I'd rather keep them together, lower the roof heights. It allows you to have some electrical
Mr.
outlets,
Phillips,
cheap maybe.
we can't make a
cost-effective.
motion like that. We can only make a motion to appropriate the funds. We can't place a condition upon it. That's all we can do. Once we appropriate the funds for them, whatever amount it is, they can do what they want with it.
I understand that, but I would like to explore that possibility.
Well, there you
I would
can-
like for that. And Mr. Barker asked me to approach those 2 commissioners, and I have in this meeting, would they consider a couple more core drills down there to see if we can relocate? That's.
You can make the recommendation,
It's a recommendation.
but we can't make it part of the motion.
Okay.
Barton, could I direct a question to all three of you commissioners?
That's what we're here for.
Would you fellows consider amending the wording of your additional appropriation request to strike the word purchase?
Can I just jump in real quick?
Yes.
A county body can't purchase real estate without an ordinance passed by the fiscal body, which would be the council. So if you guys are moving to appropriate money for him to build on an existing site, that's all you're doing. He can't purchase a building unless you guys pass it in a resolution, whether it be oral or written at a meeting, that sets out the price, the property that's going to be purchased, among other things. If that alleviates your concerns about the appropriations.
So if they make the motion just to appropriate the funds to build in the existing location, that's all they can do.
That's all they can do. I mean, just forget this highway garage. They wanted to buy a building for something else. They would, find it, get two appraisals and submit it to the council, and if they approved, the council would then pass that in a resolution or a motion, oral, and say, okay, you have our permission to purchase X building for this amount.
Does that satisfy the council?
I understand what you're saying, Chris.
Yeah.
This morning, you fellows voted, took an official stand on a vote. You intended to buy Fuzzy Lake Building.
That's right. Like I said, that's what we was instructed to do by the committee to start with.
Well, that was never.
Well, I understand it, but that is what we did.
Yeah, that was never my idea. Okay. Can you guys, would you guys be willing to take $600,000 and see what you can do for a building down on 121?
As Chris just got through telling you, Dale, if that is the motion you make, where you appropriate $600,000 to build down there, that's all we can do.
Okay. All right.
I mean, that's the truth, but we can't sit here, the three commissioners can't sit here tonight and say we will amend what we did today until we get it in a public meeting. But if you direct us that we've got $600,000 to build a building, but it has to be built on our present site, that stands on its own, the way I understand Chris.
Okay.
And this additional request is just that, it's a request. And, you could strike that purchase out of it if you wanted before it was signed. But what you're standing on is what is actually the legal action, is what's taken in the minutes by your motions and either your passing or denying that motion.
Okay.
Dale.
All right.
How are you going to address your Mr. Clump's motion is for $600,000, okay? That's before we found out about the soil problems down there. You're still looking at an additional $50,000 to $60,000.
That was if it was built where those current borings are. Right. And there's some other possibilities that maybe we won't incur that kind of a cost. We don't know for a fact, because one, you've never been given enough money to really adequately pursue anything. So it's a lot of guesswork. It's a whole lot better than what you had 6 months ago, which was $300,000, and it was really no workable budget at all.
We're now right back to where we were.
Which is what you requested 6 months ago.
Right.
Yeah. Frank, I'm really not trying to be an antagonist on this.
I know you're not. I understand that.
But those same what-ifs go along with the Fuzzy Lake Building too. There's a lot of what-ifs.
I think what Frank is saying is that we probably need $600,000 for the building, plus what additional cost we'd have to make the land stable where you're going to build.
Sure. I think that Mr. Flum did bring up a valid point though about the floor. It's something I didn't entertain. with the drains, you will have to have the floor sloped, otherwise the drains won't do much good. They're just gonna sit
But
there.
in the building we proposed for down there, there is no concrete to slope. That was a dirt floor in the half of it where the building was, or where the trucks are gonna be stored. That was a dirt floor with gravel on top.
Right, so there's no drainage.
So there is no drainage.
Right, but
So
I think in the
that
fuzzy
problem doesn't
building,
exist.
there, with the oil separator, I think we're looking at some other costs that we may not even really fully realize yet, with a fence, with that, with the floor.
Right.
So I think there could be some hiddens on both
But
sides
right,
there.
Right, we don't know until.
And I think if you do a study and you come back and you say it's gonna cost $750,000 to do with cost cutting and, you know, budget savings and so forth, you know, we have to readdress that again, but at least you have a workable budget.
Right. We just need to get to the place where we are gonna build a garage, because we have to get rid of that other, it's not safe, and the man said, you know, it's a limited amount of time until you're gonna have to take it down.
Dale, I think to answer your question, as far as the purchase of anything, or any building, to answer your question, to clarify the reason why is because we've been at this a year, and every day it gets worse and worse and worse with the building and such. So I think the way that was turned out was to, you know, really kick it into overdrive and say, look, we need to get something done today. We need to get something going, and you know, that was our position. But because we've been running around this ring for a year now, and it's our job to make sure we do what we're supposed to do.
I understand, Zane. We've got an opportunity tonight to get this thing off top dead center.
Right.
And alleviate the concerns of folks who live over on the east side of town at the same time.
Right.
And that's what I want to do. And if there's anyone on the council that can agree with me on this, please speak up.
We already have three.
We have, I think we have.
You just need to make a motion.
All right.
To get that answer.
Okay. Do we have a motion on the floor yet?
The motion was that Mark Flood made a motion to appropriate $600,000 to build at the present site and wants the commissioners to explore additional cord rails and split it into two buildings.
So it has to be rescinded.
Well,
Okay, Russ asked me if I got my question answered, then we got kind of interrupted on. Because you told me to ask the two other commissioners that they would explore the possibility of a couple other, you know, other boring sites. And I never got the answer. You started thinking you got interrupted.
I think my answer to that is I'm not an engineer, but I was listening to Dave here. If you split it up into two buildings, you're going to have two separate sections of electricity that's going to have to come in. You're going to spend more money that way.
No, all you'd have to do is feed into the one building and the sub panel to the other building. That's all you got to do.
Well, I think that would boil down to when he drew it up, which way would be the cheapest to build.
He can determine that.
As far as the extra soil borings, if we was going to go down there and build a building down, you're talking about probably a couple $1,000 to for some other soil borings, and that could be done in a couple of weeks, I would assume, right?
And just to, one of the problems that I always had from day one was the unsightliness of the site. So by moving the buildings towards the front, we get all that stuff in behind.
The front also reduces the length of utilities, which are all on the roadway. So bringing the building forward is a cost-saving function. So it may pay for itself.
Where does the water come in at? From the north end? Jay?
Where does it come in, Jay?
It comes right up in on the north side of the drive, coming up the drive.
Hey, Debbie,
On the north side of the drive?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
quick question. Since this has started a year ago, and what we've done with appraisals on buildings and so on and so forth, do you have any kind of figure of how much we've already spent running this around? I don't mean to put you on the spot if you don't, no big deal.
Well, we spent $4,600 on soil borings, and we spent
$4,000.
$3,500 for $4,350 on appraisals.
Yeah.
So we're
all that's done, you know, and when I'm
And you're
ready,
back
want to put
to, you're back to the same thing as what you asked for in
A year
your
ago.
additional.
Right.
Well, not last year, yeah.
Right, last year.
So we burnt you know,
Okay.
at least $8,000 up already,
Okay.
so,
Well,
yeah, 10.
I mean, I think it's just part of the whole exploratory process is to find the best site and the best location, so they're gonna do borings wherever, like where you thought and so forth, and it's just part of the process,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, we can explore other site locations that initially, again, when we haven't been employed, we were told this is the best. So yeah, we can go over,
You don't have
there is
many-
another site that we can look at.
You don't
Kinda
have
beating
one or
a dead
two
horse
other
right
places
now.
on it where you could put it.
Yeah, I think you have a wonderful site option if that functions. Again, I don't tend to know your function of your site yet, so as long as that works for the traffic and vehicles and everything, then it works as far as the building site.
And you're talking about just moving it closer to 121, not to the south,
Right.
not an
Yeah.
We're
additional
talking-
land purchase.
Well, we're talking about keeping it on our property,
Yeah,
on our property.
closer to 121, yeah.
Yes, that's.
Can we get
You're-
somebody,
you're-
Okay, go on.
can we get somebody to either amend Mark's motion or to rescind it?
Can I, okay, can I rescind it?
Yeah.
I'll rescind the motion then.
Okay,
Okay.
you get somebody to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the additional appropriation request by the commissioners in the amount of $600,000 for the purpose of construction of the county highway garage on the existing county property on 121.
Do you have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. We have a motion, it was seconded. I'll move to make it a vote.
I'll make a motion to make a vote.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Wait a minute.
They're asking.
Word the motion, how it's going to be.
Oh, yes, sorry.
The what?
The motion was to appropriate the $600,000 for the purpose of constructing a new highway garage in the existing location on 121.
Any further discussion?
Yeah. Any further discussion?
Mr. President, I'll call for a roll call vote.
Okay. Motion's been made for roll call vote?
Second.
Okay.
Do you want to vote?
Everybody.
Councilman Strong?
Yes.
Councilman Wolf?
Yes.
Councilman Sidell?
No.
Councilwoman Wise?
Yes.
Councilman Plum?
Yes.
Councilman Nabi?
No.
Motion carries. 4 votes in favor, 2 votes abstaining, or in opposition.
No.
No. So,
Thank you, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen.
I will start.
thank you for coming to the meeting. So, does everybody understand what that means?
I will start this construction, and you can initial there and you can sign it.
What about the drainage board? Hey, Mr. Judd?
Thanks for coming, Howard.
I'll make, I'm gonna recess for 5 minutes.
Yeah. It's on the agenda.
Call this meeting to order. Okay, second item is the land acquisition fund.
That can be done away with.
We just need to vote on
We
it, don't we?
didn't make a motion.
No, not really, because you really can't vote on it. At the time I put this together, so you gotta realize, you had the meeting on Tuesday, and I had to have something to the paper by Thursday,
Yeah.
which left me very little time to do
Okay.
anything. So that's
Did you
why it
advertise it?
said for purchase or construction, because no one had decided. And that way, this was put in case they decided to buy Willie's or anybody decided to do anything. So, I guess you could put in,
Were these advertised, Debbie?
Yes, they were.
All of them, so
Yes.
yeah, well, you would vote this one out then?
Well, you can, yeah, if you want to go ahead and make a move that,
Make a motion.
I'll second it.
Make a motion for,
What is the motion?
yeah, what's the
Yeah.
motion?
I did, I said Rush, you make the motion.
Yeah, put that down, Rush, you make it.
I'll second it.
motion to
I'll make a
what,
motion
disallow
to,
it or something?
Yeah, to disregard item number 2, the 100,000, because it's not required.
Okay, we got a motion.
I'll
It's been Seconded to, a motion to disallow the land acquisition additional proposal by the commissioners. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Who
Opposed?
seconded that?
Shirley. Did you second it, Shirley?
Yes, I did.
Yes, sure did.
Okay.
Surely she did.
Okay. Next item is the additional appropriation for the jail in the amount of $20,000.
This was through items that you had taken out of the county general's jail budget, and they didn't, hold on a second, let me find the items that were.
We tried to put it in that other fund.
Well, that's what, we're ending up, that's where it was proposed to put it into Cume Deck Jail. Plus you do to have all those other, I don't know whether any of you also realize that I have had terrible time scrambling to find places to pay our custodial staff because you took all but $3,000 of that out of the budget and nobody ever bothered to come and ask the commissioners to either amend last year's capital plan to put it in, or to revise, or to include it in this year's capital plan. And I've been scrambling to make sure Karen and Trudy have been paid.
That was taken care of this morning, correct?
Nothing has been done because it still has to be done through additionals.
Right, yes. I did talk to the commissioners this morning about the amendment to their capital plan. Now, that hasn't been done yet, obviously.
I think I still have time to advertise for the March meeting for those items, but the commissioners would have to approve their capital plan at that meeting in the morning in order for you to hear those additionals. Because you can't put additionals into pay from edit funds if the commissioners have not included it in their capital plan.
Correct. So, the sheriff needs this money for computer maintenance?
He had $18,000 in there for that, and I think that was included in his jail budget. And then he has other bills for repair to the jail. He has some bills evidently for some plumbing, and then to Johnson Controls for issues with other mechanical things at the jail. So
What's this pending bills for?
Templeton's and Johnson Controls.
Well, that's Jim Templeton, the plumber?
That would be my guess.
Okay, so there's nothing in here about the costs we incurred with the issue about the merit board.
That was paid this morning, and it was paid through contractual services.
Okay, all right. Okay.
So this is coming out of Cume Jail, right?
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the additional appropriation for the jail in the amount of $20,000. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Ayes have it, motion carried. Okay. Next item is the County General Circuit Court.
I'll speak to this. On the night of our last council meeting, the current court reporter had an accident when she fell, not here on county property, but somewhere else, and she's going to be out for, I think, for some time. And Judge Butch can't do without a court reporter. And she wants to transfer, I think we kind of calculated it for, I think, 4 weeks, and then once she has this line item established, she could move. But she just wants to transfer money from the current court reporter's line into a part-time court reporter's line to get by until her regular court reporter is back off of sick leave.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the transfer request for the circuit court in the amount of $1,148. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
No, you have one more thing.
No?
One more.
You got one more?
Motion denied.
Sorry.
Last item of business is the statement of salaries and wages for the 144 for County General Circuit Court. I believe this is in conjunction with the first proposal we just did, or additional.
Debbie, how does this fall in line with the other part-time salary?
Typical part-time salary, beginning salary for clerical is $8.42. She is requesting $10.25 because that there is a former court reporter that is already, can come in and sit down and do the job. And I think this was in line with, what.
Specific skills required for this?
Yes, yes.
Rather than a general part-time?
How many hours do you work a week approximately?
This is limited to 28 hours because it's part-time, and I did discuss that with Judge Butch. And she said actually the 28 hours works very well because the person that was going into that really did not want to work more hours than that, being that, there are certain, there might be certain times she wouldn't have to be in court. So this would be for 28 hours a week.
We don't have a part-time salary for up there then, huh?
Do what now?
We don't have a part-time salary for up there, right?
For that position?
No, there was just part-time courthouse. I'm trying to remember what the beginning salary ordinance looks like. And this is for strictly, not just part-time, but temporary part-time.
I make a motion that we approve this 144 request for a temporary part-time.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the 144 for $10.25 for part-time for the circuit court. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, motion carries.
That goes back next time. There's a lot of stuff.
We have a motion to adjourn.
There's a lot of stuff.
Second, is there any discussion? If not, I'll move.
Surely by the
We have a guest here, you got any?
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. Meeting adjourned.